I bet you didn't know your phone could become your prison. But what if I told you there's a Stoic secret to breaking free? My phone buzzed again. It was the 10th time in 5 minutes. A tiny vibration, a small sound. But honestly, it felt like a prison guard rattling the bars of my cell. Each notification was another chain, pulling me deeper into a world I couldn't escape. I felt trapped, completely and utterly trapped. My own mind was no longer my own. It belonged to the endless scroll, the constant updates, the glowing screen that demanded my attention every waking moment. I would try to read a book, but my hand would twitch, itching to check for a new message. I would try to have a conversation, but my eyes would drift towards the phone on the table. It was a silent master, and I was its unwilling servant. This digital overload was poisoning my life. Simple tasks became monumental challenges. My focus was shattered into a million tiny pieces, scattered across a dozen different apps and websites. I was always connected, yet I had never felt more disconnected from myself and the people around me. My friends would talk to me, and I would nod along, but my mind was elsewhere, lost in a sea of notifications and headlines. Was this what modern life was supposed to be? This constant state of distraction? This feeling of being pulled in every direction at once? I felt a growing sense of panic, a desperate need to break free before I lost myself completely. Even my sleep was not a refuge. I would wake up in the middle of the night, my heart pounding, with an irresistible urge to check my phone. Just a quick look, I would tell myself. But that quick look would turn into an hour of mindless scrolling, leaving me exhausted and anxious the next day. The blue light from the screen felt like it was burning into my brain, replacing my dreams with a stream of meaningless content. I was living in a state of permanent jet lag, tired but wired, unable to find a moment of true rest. The digital world had become a relentless 24/7 assault on my peace of mind. The breaking point came on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. I was meant to be working on an important project, but instead I had spent 3 hours watching random videos, jumping from one link to another without any real purpose. When I finally looked up, the sun was setting, and a feeling of deep shame washed over me. I had wasted an entire day. I had let the algorithm dictate my actions, my thoughts, and my time. I looked at my reflection in the dark screen of my laptop. A tired, hollowed-out version of myself looked back. Something had to change. I couldn't live like this anymore. The prison was of my own making, and I had to find the key. Now take a moment, really think about your own digital habits. Are you in control, or is your phone calling the shots? If you're ready to reclaim your focus and find more peace, hit subscribe and join us for more mindful living tips. Your journey to freedom starts now. In my desperation, I stumbled upon an old philosophy, the Stoics, thinkers like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius. They wrote about self-control, reason, and living in accordance with nature. They didn't have smartphones, of course, but their struggles with desire, distraction, and finding inner peace felt surprisingly relevant. Their core idea was simple but powerful. We cannot control what happens around us, but we can control our response to it. The constant notifications were external events. My reaction, my compulsive need to check them, was internal. This was the battleground. The Stoics had given me a map. My first step was to create a plan based on these ancient ideas. I decided to practice what the Stoics called the dichotomy of control. I would identify what was in my power and what was not. The existence of social media was not in my power, but turning off notifications was, so I did it. I went through every single app and silenced them all. The silence was deafening at first. It felt unnatural, like a part of me was missing. My thumb would still instinctively reach for the screen, searching for the familiar red dot that was no longer there. This initial phase was a test of willpower, a direct confrontation with my ingrained habits. Next, I focused on the Stoic practice of mindfulness, or prososh. This means paying constant attention to your ruling faculty, your mind. I scheduled specific times to check my phone, just twice a day. For the rest of the time, I committed to being fully present in whatever I was doing. When I ate, I just ate. I focused on the taste of the food, the texture, the smells. When I walked, I looked at the trees, the sky, the people around me. It was incredibly difficult. My mind, so used to constant stimulation, would wander and scream for its digital fix. I had to gently but firmly bring it back to the present moment, again and again. The final part of my plan was to embrace voluntary hardship, a classic Stoic exercise. I decided to have a complete digital Sabbath every Sunday. No phone, no laptop, no screens at all. From sunrise to sunset. The first Sunday was pure torture. I felt a profound sense of boredom and anxiety. What was I missing? What important news or message was passing me by? But the Stoics taught that we should face our fears and discomforts head-on to realize how little power they truly have over us. I had to sit with the unease, to accept it, and to understand that the world would not end if I was offline for a day. This was my escape plan, my Stoic journey to reclaim my mind. The first few days were a constant silent war fought inside my own head. My mind was like a spoiled child, throwing a tantrum because its favorite toy had been taken away. I felt a phantom vibration in my pocket every few minutes, a ghostly echo of the notifications I had silenced. Each time my heart would leap with a mix of hope and dread, only to be met with the disappointing reality of silence. I realized how deeply the habit was embedded in my nervous system. It wasn't just a psychological addiction, it was a physical one. My body craved the dopamine hit that came with every like, comment, and message. There were moments of doubt, deep and overwhelming. One evening, I was feeling particularly lonely and isolated. The temptation to just turn the notifications back on, to dive back into the comforting noise of the digital crowd, was immense. "What's the harm?" a voice in my head whispered. "Everyone else is doing it. You are just isolating yourself for no reason." I had my phone in my hand, my thumb hovering over the settings icon. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, wanting to jump back into the familiar chaos. I had to remind myself of the shame I felt that Tuesday, the feeling of being a puppet on a string. That memory gave me the strength to put the phone down. But there were also small victories that felt monumental. One afternoon, I read a book for 2 hours straight, completely uninterrupted. I was so absorbed in the story that I forgot my phone even existed. When I finally looked up, I felt a sense of calm and clarity that I hadn't experienced in years. My mind felt sharp, focused, and peaceful. It was like seeing in color after living in a world of gray. These moments were my proof. Proof that a different way of living was possible. Proof that the struggle was worth it. Each small victory was a brick I used to build a new fortress of solitude and self-control. The digital Sabbath on Sunday remained the ultimate challenge. The boredom was a physical presence, a heavy blanket that threatened to suffocate me. I found myself pacing around my flat, not knowing what to do with myself. But as the day went on, something shifted. I started noticing things I had ignored for years. The way the light fell across my room, the sound of birds outside my window, the intricate patterns on a leaf. I picked up an old guitar that had been gathering dust in a corner. I wasn't very good, but the act of creating something, anything with my own hands felt incredibly grounding. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, I felt like I was winning. After a month of this Stoic experiment, I felt like a new person. My focus had returned, my anxiety had decreased, and I was more present in my own life. I believed I had found the secret. The solution was to control the technology, to impose strict limits, and to reclaim my time and attention through sheer willpower. I was proud of my discipline. I thought the lesson was simple. The digital world is a threat, and we must fight it with ancient wisdom. I was ready to declare victory, to tell everyone that the key was to disconnect. But then, something happened that turned my entire understanding upside down. It was on the 5th Sunday, my day of complete digital silence. I felt a strange sense of unease, not the usual boredom, but something deeper, a feeling of dread. By the evening, it had grown into a full-blown panic attack. My heart was racing, my palms were sweating, and I felt an overwhelming sense of doom. Why was this happening now? I had been doing so well. I had been in control. In my desperation, I broke my own rule. I turned on my phone, thinking that maybe a message from a friend would calm me down. But there were no new messages. The screen was blank, silent. The world hadn't been trying to contact me. The panic was not external. It was coming from inside me. That's when the real truth hit me, and it was a shocking revelation. The problem was never the phone, the notifications, the endless scrolling. They were not the disease. They were just a symptom. They were the distraction I used to escape a much deeper issue, my own unresolved anxiety and fear of being alone with my thoughts. I wasn't addicted to the digital world. I was addicted to running away from myself. The constant noise had been a perfect tool to drown out the silence I was so terrified of. My digital habits were a coping mechanism for a problem I hadn't even been willing to admit I had. The Stoic journey hadn't failed. In fact, it had succeeded in a way I never expected. By removing the external distraction, it forced me to finally confront the internal chaos I had been avoiding for years. The real digital detox wasn't about deleting apps or turning off notifications. The real detox was about learning to sit with my own mind, to face my anxieties without a screen to hide behind. The battle was not me versus the machine, it was me versus me. This was the true Stoic lesson. Self-knowledge is the beginning of all wisdom. Now, I ask you, what are you running from? Try your own digital detox even for a day. You might be surprised by what you find when the screen goes dark.